alluded to, both an emergency kit and a first aid kit for pets kind of sound similar, but what is the difference here?
Right, so there's a pretty big difference. And just like with people, we want to have an emergency kit for times of, say, natural disasters. And in the emergency kit, that includes a first aid kit. And we'll talk about each of them individually. But with an emergency kit, you want to be thinking either long-term stay in place, like shelter in place, so something more substantial, or a lightweight, smaller emergency kit if you have to evacuate. And in those, with the emergency kit, we want to be thinking about pet food, water, pet first aid kit, extra leashes and harnesses. If you have a small dog or cat, you want to have a carrier ready for them. Other things are grooming items. So say there's a flood or they just get really dirty, you want to make sure you have a store of shampoo and conditioner, nail trimmers, maybe some quick stop in case their nails get a little too short, paper towels and disinfectant to clean after accidents, those types of things for grooming, and also plastic bags to from like poop or vomit or types of spills that might happen in the area where you are sheltering in place. Another thing is you want to have a printed picture of you and your pet in the emergency kit because we can't be depending on electronic devices at that time. And if you get separated from your pet, that would be the only way that they can identify, yes, this is your pet. So that's important. Trying to keep a current copy of your vaccine records and your veterinary records in that emergency kit is also important as proof of up-to-date vaccines. That's important. And familiar items that will help bring your pet comfort in times of stress. So favorite toys, favorite treats, favorite blankie, something like that. And all of these items should be stored in a waterproof, sturdy container. And more of these helpful tips can be found at ready.gov/pets. Ready.gov/pets. It has a whole list of really helpful tips for emergency kits for time natural disasters like that, right?
A lot of people have medications that their dogs take regularly, dogs or cats, and obviously there's a wide variety. What's the best way to store these types of medications in an emergency kit like this?
Oh, that's a great point. I actually forgot to mention it, so I'm so glad you brought it up. If your pet is on medications regularly, making sure that they are stored in a watertight container, maybe a pill container inside a Ziploc bag, a very sturdy watertight container with a list, a label or prescription label of exactly what that medicine is. And keeping a little backup store of that in your emergency kit is important, or a ready-to-go bag that if you do know an emergency is coming, put that ready-to-go bag in your emergency because those daily medications, whether heart medications, seizure medications, anti-anxiety meds, all of those are really important to have with you and easy to forget when you're in a crisis, right? So having those ready to go is critical.
Are there any concerns with somebody who says, well, what if I can just put my pet's emergency kit with my emergency kit? Is there any, I mean, would you suggest against that or no?
I think keeping them together but separate is really important because their pet needs are going to be a little bit different than our needs, but having them next to each other, labeled appropriately, pet emergency kit, personal emergency kit, I think that's important. Having them ready to go and fully stocked and checking them regularly to make sure that the products are not expired or out of date. Like every 6 months to a year, you check in, just take a peek and see if everything is fresh and ready to go. But you know, you're going to have food for you and yours and food for your dog and the other. So you kind of want to keep them a little bit separate.
Every time you change your smoke detector batteries, maybe also check the expiration dates on your medications.
I think that's a perfect idea. Yep.
Now, where would you suggest keeping this emergency kit?
I think it all depends on your home environment. A cool, dry place is very important. I think something like a garage that isn't thermoregulated, things could go bad faster and be easier for critters to get in. So whatever is good for your home, easy access, maybe a closet or under a bed, something where you know it's going to be quick, easy access, whatever works for your home environment. But I would probably keep it out of the garage that's not temperature controlled.
And we talked a little bit about how there will likely be some paper products in there. Do you suggest laminating these types of things or not?
I think that's a perfect idea. Laminating them is going to be most water safe. Otherwise, put them in a Ziploc bag and make sure it's well sealed. But lamination is really going to keep the water away from them. So that's a really good idea.
And if you have kids, do you think it's important to make sure the kids are aware of this, or is this something kind of just the adults can handle?
I think it's really for everyone in the house to know where the emergency items are, especially once the kids get to an age-appropriate age where they can understand what things are. I think it's very important, and also to practice those emergency evacuation plans. I think those are all really good ideas.
Is there anything that you would suggest not putting in an emergency kit?
Um, the one I don't recommend is hydrogen peroxide personally. That's really the only thing that I can think of because people will use hydrogen peroxide in wounds, which can actually cause some cell damage. And in cases of sometimes vomiting, it's often used to induce vomiting. And I personally have seen too many negative side effects from using hydrogen peroxide for vomiting. Poison control often recommend inducing vomiting at home with hydrogen peroxide. But I have seen intractable vomiting and gastritis, like ulceration of the esophagus and stomach from hydrogen peroxide. And in life-threatening situations, say if your dog has ingested a heart medication and you are 2 hours away from a veterinarian, getting that heart medication up by using hydrogen peroxide, the positives of getting that medication up outweigh the negatives of what hydrogen peroxide is going to do to the esophagus and stomach. But if you are 10 minutes from a vet and your dog just did a heart medication, for instance, the best thing to do is get to a veterinarian where they can give a medication that will induce vomiting in a controlled way, then they can stop the symptoms and you don't have those negative side effects of hydrogen peroxide. So that's one thing I don't love, but there aren't other things I can really think of right off the top of my head not to include.
Okay, perfect. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, and if she has anything else, so we will make sure to share that after. Dr. Kelley Gebhardt is here with us, and we'll be right back. Text in your questions to the number you see there on the bottom right side of your screen. Let's first talk about these first aid kits and what specifically should be in them.
Right, so thinking about first aid kits, the goal for first aid kit is to treat minor injuries and to protect wounds or injuries until you can seek veterinary care. And in true emergencies, of course, you want to seek veterinary care immediately. When you're thinking about emergency kits, you want to think about covering wounds and keeping them clean. So bandage material, you want a pair of bandage scissors, and bandage scissors are very specific because they have little rounded blunt edges on them. So when you cut the bandage off or cut it, you're not going to be poking them with sharp scissors. You want some 4x4 gauzes, also some bandage material or gauze to wrap around the area. There's something called vet wrap or Coban. It's called Coban in human medicine, but it's a stretchy bandage material that can help secure bandages in place. You also want to think about in the kit having a Telfa pad. Those are non-stick little sterile pads that you can put on top of wounds so that it'll keep the wound clean, but when you take the bandage off, it won't hurt and it won't pull on those tissues. And the goal here when thinking about this is we see wounds all the time, dogs having lacerations on their arms or around their chest. Covering it with a Telfa pad, maybe even putting a pile of 4x4 gauze on there to create a little bit of pressure, wrapping it with the gauze and then the vet band or the Coban, the vet wrap or the Coban, that will create keeping the wound clean, apply some pressure to help stop bleeding. And those are two of the best things you can do while your dog is in transport or cat is on transport to a veterinarian. Some things you may want to consider in learning how to use is actual proper tourniquet to use for extremity injuries. It is not uncommon to see wounds that have had massive trauma and trauma to the vessels, arteries, or veins, and owners will create little homemade tourniquets that have helped, but a full-on tourniquet applied 2 to 3 inches above the injury would actually be much more effective, and learning how to apply them properly is important. So a tourniquet in the first aid kit is actually really important.
I think a lot of people are just very surprised at the number of things that you should consider.
Absolutely. And something else people would about is saran wrap, because we see wounds that actually are sucking air into the chest. And one of the best things you can do is put a Telfa pad on there and some 4x4 gauze, saran wrap around that. Even if your dog has any wounds to the abdomen, do the same thing. So we're keeping things clean and keeping air from getting to the chest and parts from coming outside of the abdomen. So those saran wraps actually that can be very helpful. It's something in all the households, so that's a good thing to include as well. Something other people don't think about is a dog leash, because not only will it help keep your dog safe and with you, but if your dog's in a lot of pain and you have to create an artificial muzzle, you can actually gently wrap the leash around their muzzle, and while you're getting the medical help, it will help you prevent you from getting bitten. So a dog leash can be used for safety and keeping them with you, but also preventing them from biting you as well. Latex gloves are important for you to wear in case there are, keeping your hands clean, keeping your dirt from getting into the wounds, and keeping whatever blood or products that are on the dog from getting onto your hands. And a flashlight or headlamp in there is important too. So if you're like late at night at a dog park and your dog gets into it with another dog, you have a light source to provide you with light to apply that bandage until you can get to a veterinarian. People ask about eye wash or other things. Having some sterile eye wash or just eye wash from the pharmacy is totally great, because if the dog will let you just lavage dirt or other material out of eyes. People ask about triple antibiotic ointment. I don't recommend triple antibiotic ointment in first aid kits, because if you have a cat, one of the products in the triple antibiotic ointment can actually cause an anaphylactic reaction in cats. So getting packets of sterile lubricant is actually better, because you can apply the lubricant to the wound, then the Top-A-Pad, then the bandage, and then get to a vet. So sterile lubricant is much better than triple antibiotic in these situations. Other things to consider are little cotton swabs, because you can get little pieces of dirt out of the eye if they'll let you, out of the ear. Tongue depressors are great, because if your pet is stung by something, you want to actually use the tongue depressor to scrape the stinger out. You don't want to squeeze it, because it'll squeeze all the venom in there into the wound. So you want to scrape it with a tongue depressor. Tweezers are great because they can remove thorns and poking, pointy things. Thermometer is good, and knowing how to use it and knowing your normals for temperature for cats and dogs are important, because if you say your dog is possibly a heat stroke, you know its body temperature, you can take its temperature. Water bowl is important, and plastic bags to clean up poop and vomit and other things.
So much to consider. Well, we've got 2 segments down, 1 more to go with Dr. Kelley Gebhardt. We're going to be taking your questions when we come back, including with Dr. Kelley Gebhardt with Happy Tails. She's taking all your questions about your pets. Something in the first segment I mentioned that we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into was laminating paper documents inside a kit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. One thing we want to talk about too about the first aid kit is keeping it in a watertight, sturdy container. Inside the lid of that, you could have a laminated copy of your pet's medical information. So their name, their medical conditions, any medications they have, their age, their microchip number, if they have one. Also, your contact information, your veterinarian's contact information. A good thing for your quick reference is a pet poison helpline number. So you could pop open that kit and say, oh, my dog got into this. What's the pet poison helpline number? It could be taped onto the inside of the lid, so you have ready access. And say you have a pet sitter that is taking care of your pets while you're gone, you can say, my pet first aid kit is here, and inside the lid is this information, and so it's readily accessed for them as well.
Okay, great.